Hello everyone, welcome to Sports Insider on cleveland.com. Dan Labbe alongside Chris Fedor. We have a packed show for you today. Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, will join us, as will Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter. And then we'll talk to Joe Vardon, who also covers the Cavaliers and specifically LeBron-James. They are both in Brazil, so we're going to talk to them about the Cavaliers' preseason Brazil trip as they have a game against the Heat on Saturday. But first, as promised, let's get right to it with some Browns talk. Mary Kay Cabot joining us. Mary Kay, there are some injuries to talk about. Phil Taylor, he's going to be out for a little while. Joe Hayden, we don't know yet. What's the latest?
Well, we'll be able to watch the beginning of practice in a little while today to find out if Joe is going to be out there. But I have a feeling that he's going to be resting that hip again today. And Coach Pettin talked yesterday about getting him to game mode. There are players that are in that category. Joe is one of them. And if they can get him on the field on Sunday, they're not too worried about getting him on the practice field on Thursday. So I doubt he'll be out there today. Obviously, it would be huge to have him play in this game when you're talking about Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and all the weapons they have on that offense.
Mary Kay, if Joe Hayden can't go on Sunday against the Steelers, what does that mean for the Browns' defense? How does Mike Pettin and Jim O'Neill, what do they do to try and combat that?
Well, it's going to be really interesting because then you're going to have to press Justin Gilbert back into service, and obviously we know that he has been struggling to the point where they had him down to 9 reps in the pass game in Tennessee. Kwan Williams, he went out and did a very, very nice job. He's the nickel back covering the slot receiver. They're going to keep him in that role. That means that Robert Nelson, another undrafted rookie, and Justin Gilbert will probably have to share the reps on the outside if Joe can't go. So if Ben sees some of those matchups, I think he's going to obviously try to exploit them. And the Browns offense, they're going to just have to try to run the ball and stay on the field as much as they can.
Mary Kay, we actually saw it in the first half of the first Steelers game. Pittsburgh does a lot of things well that the Browns struggle against. Running the football. We saw Le'Veon Bell just kind of pinball off of guys all throughout that first half. Ben Roethlisberger, as tough a quarterback to bring down as there is. We know about Antonio Brown and the struggles with the Browns secondary. Do you see a way that the Browns can compensate for those shortcomings and win this game?
Well, like I said, one of the only ways that they're going to be able to do it, their best defense is probably going to have to be a good running game on the other side of the ball. They're going to have to try the best they possibly can to keep Ben and that offense off the field because this defense, let's face it, is struggling. And now you have one of your best run defenders out of the game. 2 of the guys that will be subbing for him were inactive last week. So that tells you, what you need to know about Phil Taylor and, how he's ahead of those guys. Then Billy Wynn is also going to be at least questionable for this game with a quad injury. So they're missing a couple of guys. And I do think, like you said, they can get them in the passing game, they can get them in the running game, and also Ben. Ben can just do so many things in terms of getting out of the pocket, making big plays. He's so hard to get down, and the defense has been exposed in some ways over these first few weeks. And the first signs that we knew of this were when they were in Pittsburgh in the first half of that game.
Mary Kay, when it comes down to the running game, you mentioned Ben Tate and the way that he played against the Tennessee Titans. Terrence West was mixed into that rotation. Isaiah Crowell also got some run in that game against Tennessee. How do you expect this to play out as we move forward here, especially into this game against Pittsburgh?
Well, I think the Browns are going to try to come up with some things to surprise Dick LeBeau once again. As we saw in the first game, they unveiled the no-huddle in the second half. They sprung it on him. It had the Steelers and Dick LeBeau back on their heels. They were not prepared for it, and it was a reason that the Browns almost won the football game. So I think you'll see more wrinkles and more surprises in this game. I think Kyle Shanahan knows that he has to do those kind of things to sometimes jumpstart this offense. So, just because we think that Ben Tate is going to run the ball all the time, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit more of Crowell and West just to change things up. Who knows? Maybe they'll trot some Johnny out there again. Just because we all think that Brian Hoyer is playing so well that he's going to keep Johnny plastered to the bench doesn't mean that's really going to happen. They need to pull out all the stops if they want to win this division game.
Speaking of Brian Hoyer, Mary Kay, is this kind of his biggest test to date? This is the first time he's going to be playing a team for the second time. They've seen Brian Hoyer. They've seen that no-huddle offense. Are we going to kind of see a little more of what the Browns have in Brian Hoyer this week than maybe in weeks past?
Well, I think so because, it's going to be, again, it's a better football team than the one that they played last week. And like we've said before, now that they're ready for the no huddle and they're preparing for the no huddle, they've had that on film, and they have a few more games of Bryant on film now to study and to try to exploit some of his weaknesses. And if anybody can find those little holes in someone's game, it will be Dick LeBeau. So they're going to have to come up with some new wrinkles. They're going to have to keep it fresh. Brian Hoyer's going to have to be on point. He's not going to be able to be missing throws. And those receivers, the ones that have been coming up big for him, the young guys, Taylor Gabriel, Andrew Hawkins, are going to have to be on point.
And when it comes to Travis Benjamin, Mary Kay, do you expect his role on offense, not special teams, but on offense, to continue to evolve as we move forward here?
Yeah, I think, he demonstrated some great ability in that game to go up and to reach up and catch the football in the clutch of a football game, and then also to keep his feet in, and they practice that a lot. So that's some good coaching that we saw right there. And, he hasn't lost any confidence. They're just punching to him differently. They're trying to go away from him. They're not making it easy for him to just catch the football and take off with it. So I don't think we'll see him doing that much punt returning, although, once again, be ready for anything on special teams, defense, and offense to try to win this game.
Mary Kay, what is it about this defense? In the first halves, obviously, we've seen that they've struggled mightily. In second halves, they haven't been quite as bad. Now, last week they were facing Charlie Whitehurst for that entire second half, so take that for what it's worth. But what is it about this defense early in the game as opposed to late in the game?
Teams are just finding a way to get them. They're identifying on film that there are guys that just aren't doing some things well, and they're taking advantage of it. In addition to that, the defense is not playing together as a unit yet. They're still learning who goes where when we call this defense, and what depth does this person need to be in. So then you've got some young guys, you've got some new guys. It hasn't really come together yet. I think the good thing for the defense is that it's got a lot of places that it can still go up throughout the season, and I think you will see that. I think guys have a lot to prove. I think they're going to step up. I think when you roll new guys in there, like a John Hughes and an Ish Kitchen, I think those guys are going to rise to the occasion and do some things to prove that they belong on the field.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot joining us here on Sports Insider. Mary Kay, we appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so that was Mary Kay Cabot. We will talk Cavs now shortly with our Cavs beat reporter Chris Haynes and Joe Vardon also joining us, both in Brazil. And you are, of course, running the live Brazil Cavs blog. It's been an interesting few days as far as the Cavs are concerned, though. I think we're going to talk a little bit of Kyrie Irving, of course, and this Cavs Heat preseason game. It's only a preseason game, but it feels like there's a little extra, juice behind it.
Oh, there is. There's no doubt about it. David Blatt talked about it before the team even left for Brazil. He said, we're going to compare ourselves against a team that went to the NBA Finals 4 times in a row. And look, everybody understands that Miami's not the same team. Yep. They don't have that LeBron guy anymore. They replaced him with Luol Deng, Danny Granger, and Josh McRoberts. But they're still a team that I think a lot of people expect to be there in the Eastern Conference and be, I would say, one of the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. So when you can play against a playoff team in the preseason and you can represent the NBA as they're trying to expand globally, it's a huge honor for the Cavs, and they're taking advantage of it.
All right, let's go ahead and turn things over now to our Cavaliers beat reporter, Chris Haynes, joining us live from Brazil. Chris, how is Brazil treating you?
All right, it's actually media availability right now, so with the Heat. So guys are kind of scrambled around. So it's a ton of media. You think about the local, international reporters that's here alongside with the people from the States. So it's definitely something I've never seen before in my time covering this media. It definitely looks like a special environment.
Chris, you've been around the Cavs, obviously. Now you're around the Heat. Is this awkward for LeBron, do you think?
Yeah, especially right now. I mean, preseason game, I understand what the league was trying to do, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it would have been better for each party. I'm talking about the Heat and Cavs to have their first meeting to be in a game that means something. So yeah, it is awkward. It's like you come here to Brazil. Hey, the league is trying to expand the game. We understand that, but it's like an awkward meeting because guys don't know whether to take this serious, even though this is going to be the first time LeBron faces his old team. So I just spoke with Coach Stowe, just now. He said, hey, they're just treating it as a game where guys just want to get better, not necessarily to try to win the game. So, yeah, I definitely do think it's an awkward meeting right now, being that it's only a preseason game.
Chris, we made it 3 questions without asking you about the walking boot heard around the world. So let's talk about it. A little bit of a freak out from Cavs fans yesterday when they first heard about Kyrie Irving's walking boot. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, I spoke with Kyrie yesterday, and he said his ankle is all right. As we know, he sprained it a couple of days ago in practice, right before the team took off for Brazil. And the boot was just for precautionary measures. X-rays, MRI came back negative, so he said he expects to be okay. They actually start practice here in this arena, the very arena that I'm in right now, in about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit less. So we'll see if he's able to come out here and give it a go. But all signs point to him practicing today and playing Saturday.
Do you expect him to play on Saturday against Miami, Chris?
Based on the little conversation that we had yesterday, I do, because the way he was walking in that boot, he was walking fine.
Okay.
And that led me to believe that it was simply precautionary measures. So yeah, I do as of right now expect him to play.
But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of people have pointed this out since Kyrie got hurt. Kyrie, everybody knows his injury history, and I think it's kind of put the spotlight on the Cavs' backup point guard situation. And Chris, I know this is something that you and I have talked about. Matthew Dellavedova right now penciled in as the backup point guard. Aside from that, they have A.J. Price. Dion Waiters is somebody who has talked about maybe in the future he would like to play some point guard. So if Kyrie does go down for an extended period of time, how much trouble would the Cavs be in?
They really like Matthew Dellavedova and the city of Cleveland and the state of Ohio do as well. I can see that. That was one of the first things I noticed when I came aboard. But I really do think they need a veteran presence at that backup point guard position. A lot of times when you look at a lot of NBA championship teams, the backup point guard usually somebody who can come in and fill a role for about 8 to 10 minutes a game. It's usually a veteran, somebody who's been there, done that. Dellavedova is still trying to find his way. So I think Dellavedova, I think he'll shine, in his time in his spot duty. But I definitely think he'll struggle at times because I think the atmosphere, the environment in some places will be too much for him. So I think they can definitely hold it together with the talent they have overall. But if you're David Griffin, I definitely think you got to be looking to upgrade that position sooner or later.
You got the owner tweeting about Delly as well, trying to get a new concession menu item for Matthew Dellavedova. So he's certainly beloved around here. Speaking of veteran guys that could be out there, I mean, who are some possible options?
I haven't looked. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think right now of some guys that's out there on the market. A guy like Mike James comes to mind. That's a free agent still on the market who's played, I believe, 13 seasons in this league, a veteran guy. There's some guys out there. I have to get back to you on that, but it's definitely a position that I know. The two guard position as well. And they don't have a real true two, even though James Jones and Mike Phillips play that position. But when you start, going around the league and some of the quick athletic two you have in this league, Dion Waiters is the only guy that can, take on that task. And LeBron, of course. But, maybe Ray Allen will solidify that role once he comes aboard. But as of right now, I think the point guard position is the most dominant position in the league.
Chris, you mentioned what Eric Spoelstra said that he wants to accomplish during the preseason game between the Cavs and the Heat, and I know you haven't talked to David Blatt yet today because the Cavs haven't practiced yet, but what do you think it is, knowing what you know about David Blatt, what he wants to accomplish here in this preseason game?
Well, they're still in evaluation mode, and they still want to see, how their key guys gel. They still need to get some time out on the court and build some chemistry. So that's mainly what it's going to be about, gelling first, and then to see what are some diamonds in the rough that may be there down on the end of that bench. Guys like Alex Curtin, Joe Harris, guys like that, see what they can do. So it's still a feeling out. Remember, both teams, they're trying to win the game, but most importantly, it's a process that they want to get completed, guys. And guys, I'm terribly sorry, but Chris Bosh is about to speak right now. I have to catch this, but
Talk to him.
that's definitely both teams right now. I'll tell you right now, winning is not their main priority right here while they're in Brazil.
All right, thanks a lot for taking the time out, Chris.
Take care, guys.
All right, that is Chris Haynes, our Cavaliers beat reporter. Boy, Kyrie Irving injuries. Scary.
Come on. Are you doing this
They're
again?
scary.
You're doing this again.
And we know that this team,
Yeah.
I don't think this is anything to worry about. But
Okay.
we also know in the past, this team has not necessarily been front and center reporting on injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and again, you hear something like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then a month later, Anderson Varejao was out for the year.
Right.
I don't think that's the case with Kyrie Irving here, but nervous Cavs fans everywhere for at least a few hours yesterday.
You know, I think when it comes to Kyrie, I think a lot of people have a reason to be nervous because of what you just said there, Dan. His injury history. It's a long one. It is a long one. He's missed 49 games so far in 3 years in the NBA. He only played 11 games when he was at Duke. So the injury history, I understand why the fans were so concerned about it.
All right, let's bring in our next guest, our Cavaliers and LeBron reporter, Joe Vardon, joining us. He is also in Brazil. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well. I just got out of a media scrum, no other way to describe it, with Chris Bosh, who was talking about, as you might have guessed, LeBron-James.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, LeBron facing his old team. It's a little weird because it's a preseason game, but you know, what have you sensed about LeBron kind of approaching this game? Is he nervous about it? I mean, what's his attitude going into this?
Well, everyone's calling it a preseason game, but of course it's more than that because there is this, some level of awkwardness, some level of newness, and just some level of nervous energy, I think, on all sides to do what they say is getting this out of the way. People in Cleveland understand what that is like when the first time that the Cavs played the Heat when LeBron went there. And of course it was entirely more dramatic than this will be, certainly. But it's still there. And, LeBron, I don't know if he's going to say that or not. We'll talk to him here in a minute. But, yeah, I mean, the Heat guys acknowledge that at minimum this is something that you get out of the way now. Although Bosh just said Christmas Day will be a different beast, and that's when LeBron returns to Miami. So we'll see.
Speaking of Chris Bosh, Joe, he made some comments this week that, if you're not in my locker room, I don't have time for you. He said that he hasn't talked to LeBron, which is interesting because Dwayne Wade had that wedding in August, and Chris Bosh was there, Pat Riley was there, Mickey Harrison was there, a bunch of Heat players were there. What else did Bosh have to say about his former teammate and his friend, LeBron?
Yeah, he said that on Tuesday before coming down here. He was much more buttoned down today about it.
Okay.
Straightforward, just acknowledged, as I said, that this is something you get out of the way. He also said that he understands. He understands that these questions are going to keep coming and that it's part of the job. But he still at the same time has the mentality of, kind of Heat first.
Yeah.
Wade, who I spoke with too, is a little bit more open about this. He's a little bit more, this is the way it is. I mean, LeBron was here and now he's not. He's still my friend. The court is the court. He's not quite drawing the line in the sand the way Bosh is.
I wonder, in your mind, how Heat fans kind of see LeBron now. I mean, remember how much Cavaliers fans despised him when he first left. How do you think Heat fans feel about him? I'm sure there's some hatred there and some disgust there, but is it anywhere near as intense as it was when he left Cleveland?
No, I think that there's a few different dynamics at play. For one, the Miami people saw what happened in Cleveland and they learned from it. They saw that feeling, that visceral feeling towards LeBron last maybe perhaps a bit longer than it should have. And sort of nationally, there began to be a backlash about that. And so I think on one level, the Miami fans learned to try to keep it a little bit more in check. The second thing, and this is probably as, if not more important, is that LeBron delivered 2 NBA championships there. Mm-hmm. I mean, so there was like a reward for their investment, and so there's more of a, we appreciate what you have done. Thirdly, of course, LeBron is from Cleveland or from Akron, not Miami, so there's that. And then the fourth thing is there is probably some level of resentment among some fans, but the bottom line is not anything to the degree that there was in Cleveland early on.
Joe, you've been in Brazil now a couple of days. How are the fans in Brazil reacting to the Cavs and the Heat and LeBron James being there for an NBA game?
Yeah, I mean, they are excited. I think that it's fair to say that, certainly. But you don't see, at least yet, like this outpouring of support. There are a couple of people at the Cavs hotel, for instance, waiting outside. Yeah. And you see some of those things, but it's not like a horde. I expect they think they're going to have a sellout on Saturday, but we're only talking 13 or 14,000 people.
Right.
Joe, LeBron has sort of over the years taken more of a leadership role when it comes to negotiations between players and owners. He's been talking a lot over the years about max deals. He sees the kind of money that a guy like A-Rod can get in baseball. How much of a role is he going to play when the next round of negotiations comes around with ownership over a new contract?
Yeah.
Is he going to be front and center on that?
Yeah, I certainly think so. And he spoke earlier this week just about it. I mean, he understands his place in this game. He knows how big of a place, how much power he has, and he intends to use it. And I think it begins with the next round of labor negotiations, which I believe will take place in 2016 and 17 because of this new TV deal. And he doesn't own an official leadership position, but he knows what he has is actually far more power than that, as what everyone keeps saying, the face of the league. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be front and center. And it will be interesting just to see, how contentious this gets. LeBron, on the one hand, doesn't seem to be coming at it from that perspective, but he has also said, look, we will not be in a position to give like we did in the last CBA. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but LeBron certainly would play a big role.
All right, Joe Vardon joining us live from Brazil. Appreciate you taking the time out, Joe.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, so Mary Kay Cabot talking Browns, Chris Haynes talking Cavaliers, Joe Vardon talking LeBron and Cavaliers in Brazil. How do you feel about this Heat game? Are you interested in this Heat game, or are you kind of waiting until Christmas to kind of see how things go?
Obviously, Christmas is going to be a different level. I would expect LeBron, if Kyrie plays, Kevin Love, to play between 20 and 25 minutes, so it's really tough to get a gauge on a game like this. Chris Bosh, he's probably not going to be playing 40 minutes like he's going to play in the regular season. But I think the storyline surrounding the game, that's what really has me compelled because, you can downplay it and talk about it being a preseason game, but again, they're in Brazil to try and expand the game globally. It's two teams that they're going to have this rivalry throughout the regular season and for the next couple of years, really. Even when the Cavs were not good the last 4 years, Dan, fans here in Cleveland hated Miami, rooted against Miami, started calling themselves the Mavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So those feelings towards Miami, they're not just going to go away because LeBron's back. Now they're still going to be there because you want to beat Miami and the whole Chris Bosh, LeBron James thing, the whole Dwayne Wade, LeBron James thing. So I think it's a fascinating matchup.
I think because it's in Brazil, it loses a little bit of its luster.
A little bit.
Though, because you're not going to have Heat fans there who are responding to LeBron when he's introduced, or booing him every time he touches the basketball, something like that.
Yeah,
but,
you mean like the 7,000 of them?
Well, the 500 or 600 that are left.
Hey, remember that sweet comeback against San Antonio and Ray Allen shot? Oh no!
How many are going to be there for player intros on Christmas Day? Even they're going to trickle in by about the third quarter.
Right,
so when LeBron
exactly.
subs back in the second half, that's when he'll hear the boos on Christmas Day. All right, that's going to do it for Sports Insider. Our thanks to Mary Kay Cabot, Chris Haynes, and Joe Vardon for joining us. For Chris Fedor, I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for watching.